After the events of the first Iridion game, the eponymous evil forces completely vanished from the galaxy. Mankind, now with all this new spacefaring tech, decided to embark on yet another colonial expansion mission, because that never ends badly, does it? This time to the uncharted worlds of outer space. Hundreds of years passed in relative peace, it depends on your perspective I guess, until the Iridian Empire returned, attacking the colonized planets and trying to take them back from the hands of humanity. You need to pilot the SHN-27 battlecruiser to save your people from the invading Iridian hordes. The first game, Iridion 3D, is perhaps best known for how stunning it looks. The use of scaling and perspective created some truly stunning backdrops and enemy design, particularly during the boss fights. While technically not three-dimensional, it was as close an illusion as you'd ever hope to get. At its time of release, it was easily the most aesthetically impressive game to ever come out on any Game Boy console. Iridion 2, it could conceivably be argued, takes a bit of a step back from that, or at the very least is more conservative with it. I don't think that makes the graphics worse here, really, look at it. The rich space environments are excellently rendered, as is the design of both the players and the enemy ships, with some intricate detail here and there. We're looking at the action from a semi-top-down perspective rather than directly behind the ship, which definitely helps with your positioning and perception of enemy placements. Sometimes it was tough to visualize how close stuff was to hitting you before. That's not a problem here. It's maybe fair to say that gameplay was sacrificed a bit in the first game in favor of presentation, as the level designs were a bit one-dimensional, ironically. Here, we get much more interesting waves of enemies, as well as more varied obstacles. There are mini-mazes where you get chased and need to nimbly dodge your way to the end. Certain blocking doors can be opened by shooting the correct side of these rotating paddle things. More simply, in shoot-'em-up terms, the enemies attack with pace and, more importantly, with variety. You don't get an age to watch things drift towards you. Reactions need to be much more immediate, which is helped by the buttery smooth frame rate and responsive controls. They're simple enough that it almost seems redundant to remark on them, but for the most part you'll be holding A to auto-fire and concentrating on dodging. There are times when you'll want to cool your guns, so to speak, like when shooting the aforementioned revolving door locks. You need to make sure you're aiming at the correct side or the doors will close. If you double tap A and then hold on the second, you'll actually charge up a super powerful shot that is useful when you can't get a clear shot at a boss. Just charge up until you can. Also, there are these dual shots that fire ahead of you if you're holding, but upon release of fire, they'll strafe to the side of your ship and eventually behind. These are great for hitting stuff coming from behind. You can aim to a certain extent simply by pressing and releasing A. If I recall correctly, there was a weapon in Axelay for the SNES that did a similar thing. Anything coming from behind is alerted to you with an alarm and a huge arrow. It happens a lot on some levels, but not at all on others, so you can choose these weapons more tactically. The weapon system is more in-depth this time, whereby it's not just 4 or 5 different colours of bullets that do largely the same things. At the start of a stage you can pick from a variety of different guns, which can then be powered up by collecting these green orbs. Sometimes you have to shoot them out of a casing. You can power up weapons a total of 2 times, but they do get quite a bit more powerful, and also you'll get these 2 indestructible side pods that fly to the front of your ship if you're retreating, giving extra firepower. If you're flying normally, they'll bolster your attack left and right, giving a wider spread. They don't take damage, but can block yours, so can be used tactically at a push. Use a power-up by pressing B, or you can actually switch weapons by pressing the L and R buttons if you've got a power-up to spend. You don't lose your other one if you do this, and can switch between them at a whim. You do lose them once the level's beaten, which is probably wise, or else this game would be way too easy. It's fair to say this isn't the toughest game in the genre, but there are 2 extra difficulties if you fancy more of a challenge. The game's fairly long. You'll first get a choice of 3 planets to liberate in any order, and once they're all saved, you can go forth and tackle the next part of your mission. Each stage has a mid-level and an end boss fight, and these are just as visually impressive as before. Again, they're not super tricky, especially because of your generous hit bar. Purists probably wouldn't like that HP counter that's readily refillable at least once during a stage, so it might have been a cool idea to remove it in the highest difficulty and make the game a one-hit KO. Again, Manfred Linzner did a brilliant job with the soundtrack. It's a real early 90s OST throwback. A shame we didn't hear more music from that guy on more famous games, but he's got a handful of entries on both GBC and GBA, which I'll look forward to. I like the novel idea of the jukebox mode on the menu. You can mix and match the different instruments of the menu music as you please. A fun little feature that you'll try once and then forget exists, probably. So yeah, I would say that Iridion 2 is definitely the better game of the two, but it's not as gaping a chasm as some would have you believe. The first is probably better than people give it credit for. The second one is not quite the masterpiece it occasionally gets acclaimed to be. Both are very good, enough to sate shmup fans without being immensely hard, and accessible enough to outsiders of the genre.